In Haiti, the Living Together coalition of criminal groups has been setting fire to residences, schools, and churches since Sunday in revenge for the death of one of its leaders at the hands of police forces. Israeli occupation forces stepped up their relentless assault on Kamal Adwan hospital in northern Gaza. More than 30 Palestinians were killed across Gaza in the early hours of Tuesday. And Ukrainian security services assassinated General Igor Kirillov, chief of the radiological, chemical, and biological defense troops of the Russian armed forces. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Haiti, the Living Together coalition of criminal groups has been setting fire to residences, schools, and churches since Sunday in revenge for the death of one of its leaders at the hands of police forces. In the middle of a confrontation this weekend, national and multinational police forces neutralized Elias Jeff Mafia, the lieutenant of Jimmy Cherichier, head of the criminal coalition. In retaliation, the criminal group maintained an incessant attack on residential areas, schools, and religious centers in Nazon, Poste Marchand, and Avenue Popular in Port-au-Prince, the country's capital. The order from the leaders of the criminal groups has spread to several provinces in the center of the country. In this context, they have warned of a forthcoming attack on the base of operations of the multinational police forces. And on Tuesday, the United Nations urged to redouble efforts to restore peace in Haiti, recognizing the need to guarantee fair and transparent elections. The United Nations Integrated Office in Haiti said that efforts to improve the country's security can generate lasting progress if they are also accompanied by the holding of credible and inclusive elections. The UN office also reiterated its commitment to support efforts aimed at gaining the confidence of the Haitian people in their political authorities. Meanwhile, the office welcomed the continued efforts of the leaders of the Caribbean community and called on all parties involved in Haiti's transition to spare no effort to ensure the success marked by peace. And on December 17, 1830, the great liberator of our America, Simon Bolivar, passed away at the age of 47. Today, people across the continent pay homage to a man that changed the course of this territory forever. To better understand this present relevance to Latin America and the Caribbean, our colleague Garfield Purford prepared the following material.
Simon Bolivar's image adorns public spaces across Venezuela and beyond. The reason is clear. El Libertador, or the Liberator, has towered large over the movement for freedom and self-determination in Latin America and the Caribbean for over 2 centuries. The Liberator died on this date in 1830 at the age of 47. However, his legacy among the pantheon of history's great liberators had already been secured. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro Moros praised Bolivar's leadership of the independence movement during a recent event.
Luego, en el año 99, el comandante Chávez.
Then, in 1999, Commander Chavez came to this same hall. The Ayacucho Hall it is called. In commemoration of the great battle that freed all South America, which we commemorated last Monday, the 200th anniversary of the Great Battle of Ayacucho, that ended the colonial imperial domination of Spain over all South America.
Imperial colonial de España sobre todo Suramérica.
Bolivar was a soldier and statesman whose early life had positioned him to rebel against Spanish rule in the Americas. His inspiring call to action on freedom from Spanish rule was contained in the Cartagena Manifesto and the letter from Jamaica. Bolivar did not only encourage rebellion against Spanish rule across the region, but led military expeditions against the Spaniards himself. He liberated Venezuela. The area is now occupied by Colombia, Panama, and Ecuador. He also freed Peru and Bolivia, which now bears his name. Bolivar's separate sojourns to Haiti and Jamaica also meant the Caribbean was also a crucial region in his push for freedom and self-determination. The late Hugo Chavez summoned that same spirit of Latin American and Caribbean integration as he spoke in Havana in 1994.
This is a project that we already put in practice in Venezuela under the name of Simón Bolívar National Project, but with our arms wide open to the rest of the Latin American and Caribbean continent.
Some 13 years later, then-President Chavez continued to emphasize the importance of this bond between Latin America and the Caribbean.
La Carta de Jamaica bien pudiéramos tomarla de estos pueblos.
And we could easily consider the letter of Jamaica, like the birth letter, the constitution letter of the project of independence, the project of liberation of our peoples.
Most historical records indicate Simón Bolívar died from tuberculosis. His remains were exhumed in 2010, but scientists were unable to conclusively determine the cause of his death. Of one thing, though, there can be no doubt. His legacy lives on, providing echoes of inspiration for the indomitable human spirit. From Caracas, I'm Garfield Burford for teleSUR.
And in Colombia, a report by the Ombudsman's Office has alerted several social organizations to figures showing repeated violations of women's rights in the context of the armed conflict and transgressions of international humanitarian law for communities in that country. Let's see more details.
La Defensoría del Pueblo dio a conocer un
The
informe.
Ombudsman's Office released a report with figures on violence against women during 2024. According to the data collected, 745 femicides have been registered, 44 of which were against girls. While between January and September alone, more than 26,000 cases of intimate partner violence and more than 300 cases related to human trafficking were reported. In addition, it was reported that 205 alerts have been issued on significant risks for women in conflict contexts.
Today we make a call to improve early warning responses and work together with the most affected regions of the country to alleviate the serious situation in which the communities live, strengthen their proposals, and offer protection measures not only individually, but especially collectively with early prevention measures. In the face of fear, creativity and solidarity, never silence.
In the territories, violence is expressed with greater force against women who exercise leadership in their communities and fight for social and welfare demands related to the recovery of land and the implementation of comprehensive rural reform.
And for this reason, for accompanying these people who are fighting to be heard, to be given their rights, to be listened to and to be given land to work, I am being threatened and stigmatized. I am being threatened and stigmatized by a guy named Mauricio Torres, who is a retired colonel of the security forces. He is also the partner of the widow of Olmedo Ocampo, the drug trafficker who was the owner of the Cachape farm. I am making this public denunciation because they are saying in all the media that I am a guerrilla swindler.
Social organizations describe this scenario as a very complex situation in the midst of the search for total peace that the current government has been promoting, since only in the last 2 years several armed groups have deepened their military actions and have degraded, continuously violating international humanitarian law.
Displacements, confinements, assassinations, massacres, extortions, kidnappings, recruitment of minors and planting of mines, in general, everything that is prohibited by international humanitarian law. But also the political discourse that relates them to society and the possibility of maintaining political and social recognition with the people. Has also been degraded because they have prioritized the taking of territories, the dispute of territories, the dispute of mines, drug trafficking, human trafficking of species, and in general a series of illegal businesses that delegitimize them little by little, and that if they continue along this route of lumpenization, the government will have to change its strategy of dialogue.
El gobierno va a tener que cambiar su estrategia de diálogo.
The challenges for the current government are growing with each passing day. A total peace and dialogues with different armed actors totally fragmented. A difficult situation for the communities and their leadership in the territories. In addition to the social transformation projects that do not advance in the Congress, where there is a parliamentary class that has been fed by the conflict.
Hernán Darío Tobar Gaitán, teleSUR, Bogotá, Colombia.
Now I have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Argentina closes 2024 with a food inflation rate of 183%, surpassing Haiti, Angola, and Malawi due to the worst crisis ever in its history. The food inflation rate measures how the prices of basic foodstuff acquired by Argentine households vary. In addition, the Trade in Economics dedicated to the analysis and interpretation of economic data stated that the Milei government allocated less than 3 figures to programs for the people's welfare. Moreover, the entity highlighted that Argentina ended 2024 at the top of the list of countries with the highest food inflation rate. And after being deported from the United States, the drug lord Osiel Cárdenas Guillén, former leader of the Gulf Cartel and founder of the bloodthirsty group known as Los Zetas, was sent to a prison in Mexico. The Secretary for Security and Citizen Protection said that drug lord was handed over at 9:45 local time at Tijuana border in northern Mexico by federal authorities. After 5 p.m. local time, it was confirmed that he had been admitted to the Social Reinsertion Center in Mexico City. The Attorney General's office issued 3 warrants against him for aggravated homicide, organized crime, and crimes against health, in addition to several other crimes, totaling more than 730 years in prison. And the Mayan train, the emblematic work of former Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, has been in operation for 1 year, and the current President Claudia Sheinbaum highlighted its value beyond transportation. Let's see.
The Mexican president showed on this map how the Mayan train was completed. After the inauguration of Sections 6 and 7 of this flagship project of the so-called Fourth Transformation of Mexico's public life.
The train is the recognition of the Mayan culture. This idea that the Spaniards arrived and brought civilization is totally erroneous and wrong, and the only thing it leads to is to give permanence to the discrimination that came with the colony.
As of last August, 340,000 passengers had used this flagship facility. A few hours before its first anniversary, it was reported that the figure reached more than 600,000, 20% of the estimated goal of 3 million people.
This dynamic of linkage with our airports, with the resorts that are in our state, which have a lot to offer in terms of tourism, is already beginning to be generated.
The Mayan train created 44,000 direct jobs and 18,000 indirect jobs, a figure that will increase with the startup of the Mayan hotels along the route.
The Mayan train also means social justice, because it provides welfare and development with justice for the communities and peoples of southeastern Mexico.
The work, which took 4 years, has as one of its objectives to bring welfare to the native communities and to rescue the archaeological pieces found during construction.
And today, the 1,554 kilometers of railroads, social justice, and narrowing the inequality gaps have been achieved.
The Mayan train is consolidating its position as an important tourist link through vacation packages, in spite of the criticisms made by some people.
There's no place here to have a sandwich or a coffee, nothing.
Environmental groups have denounced the environmental damage caused by the project, although according to the government, 500 million trees have been reforested to repair the environmental damage.
Daniel Rosas, teleSUR, Ciudad de México.
The U.S. Geological Survey registered Tuesday a 7.4 magnitude earthquake in the South Pacific archipelago of Vanuatu, triggering a tsunami warning. The earthquake occurred 30 kilometers west of the coast of Port Vila, the country's capital. So far, authorities have not reported any deaths or injuries. The U.S. Forecasting Service warned that smaller waves are expected in some nations close to the Pacific Ocean. In this regard, the Defense Minister of New Zealand, Mark Mitchell, said that the government is closely following the situation in the archipelago, noting the nation is ready to send the necessary aid. Meanwhile, in Mozambique, the National Institute of Risk and Disaster Management reported 34 deaths from Cheeto storm, which battered the northern domestic region on Sunday. The INGD stressed that a 30-year-old girl was among the fatal victims, warning that the aforesaid death toll is likely to skyrocket. The entity further specified that the storm made over 34,000 Mozambican families lose their homes, as the weather phenomenon brought winds of around 260 kilometers per hour. Furthermore, authorities announced the destruction of schools, health facilities, and fishing boats as well. Likewise, the Electricidad de Mozambique updated that about 200,000 customers are still without power.
I took my children, and while we were running, I saw other families falling due to the force of the wind, and others dodging things that fell from the houses due to the wind. People were lucky that the zinc sheets didn't cut them into pieces. Children couldn't stop crying. I saw children running away, but I didn't see where they ran to. In the end, thank God, I realized all the children are here at school. There are old people here, women and children who are hungry.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. Israeli occupation forces step up their relentless assault on Kamal Adwan hospital in northern Gaza. More than 30 Palestinians were killed across Gaza in the early hours of Tuesday. Despite repeated appeals by the director of the World Health Organization, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, who has described the situation in the hospital as a living hell, the siege against the center continues unabated. Its director, Hossam Abu Safeya, confirmed power outages, shortages of medicines and medical supplies, and constant bombardments. The situation in other areas of the Strip is no better. Several areas have been bombed. In one of these attacks, the whole Al-Turk Tabatibi family was killed, 10 people in total, almost all women and children. Meanwhile, the Palestinian Prisoner Information Office said that more than 5,000 inmates in Israeli prisons suffered deliberate medical neglect and torture. Israeli occupation forces carried out mass arrests during which they ill-treated and humiliated Palestinian men and boys. Detainees were handcuffed, blindfolded, and held without food and water for periods ranging from 5 to 19 hours, resulting in the death of several of them. The number of arrests since the beginning of the current Israeli aggression against Palestine has reached more than 12,100 West Bank citizens. The Egyptian government acted as a mediator, summoning the president of Palestine, Mahmoud Abbas, to hold peace negotiations. Subsequently, leader Abbas is heading for Cairo after his one-hour meeting with Pope Francis. Likewise, Egyptian security sources assured that Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu was not in Cairo right now. However, they stated a meeting was underway to work through remaining issues, such as a Hamas demand for guarantees, stressing that any immediate deal would lead to a comprehensive agreement later. Furthermore, they advanced the encounter has been fruitful so far, thus they estimated that Tuesday night could be decisive in setting the next step. And on Monday, the self-proclaimed Syrian leader Mohammed al-Jolani assured that the nation will not lend its territory to mount attacks on Israel. The leader said so on an interview to a British outlet on the name he prefers to use now, Ahmed al-Shara. With this identity, he hopes to disassociate himself from his past as the founder of one of the most bloodthirsty branches of the terrorist group Al-Qaeda. Al-Jolani, who is under an international arrest warrant for being considered by Washington as a specially designated global terrorist, has guaranteed the security of the Zionist entity, assuring that they will comply with the agreements. Germany and France joined the United Kingdom and the United States. On Tuesday, they meet with Al-Qaeda member who proclaimed himself the leader of Syria after toppling its president. The governments of the four nations were part of the alliance of 63 countries that repeatedly bombed the Arab nation for 13 years, in violation of the United Nations resolution. The German Foreign Ministry confirmed that the meeting to be held this Tuesday in Damascus will focus on the transition processes for Syria and the protection of minorities. Although Al-Qaeda has been in power for less than a week, Berlin has considered that this is enough time to qualify its action as prudent, an argument with which they explained the meeting. The French delegation has not commented on its presence in Damascus. And Ukrainian security services assassinated General Igor Kirillov, chief of the radiological, chemical and biological defense troops of the Russian armed forces. The news was confirmed by Svetlana Petrenko, a representative of the Investigation Committee of Russia. According to reports, the incident occurred near the residence of the high official, in which his assistant was also killed. The Investigation Committee published minutes after the fact was confirmed that the improvised explosive device was placed on an electric scooter parked on Ryansansky Avenue. In this context, Ukrainian security services have claimed responsibility for the assassination. General Kirillov led investigations that exposed U.S. involvement in biological labs in Ukraine and other countries. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.